2014, I posted a video about two Star Trek TOS Season 1 Type 2 phasers. In that video, I talked about the development of TOS phaser props and demonstrated two versions of the Season 1 white-handled phaser replicas that I'd built. Those two replicas, which you're looking at now, were based on very rare versions of the phaser props used in early to mid Season 1. This video includes footage from my original 2014 video, plus new material on a late Season 1 version of the white-handled phaser I built after the 2014 video was posted. Before building my replicas of the white-handled phasers, I did some research. The best information I could find about the development of Type 2 phaser props came from rackprops.com. RAC, R-A-C, by the way, stands for Richard A. Coyle, the master prop designer and builder who worked on Star Trek Next Generation and many other programs. He compiled a very interesting and well-illustrated history of the phaser prop. Basically, Mr. Coyle's article points out that during Season 1, the color scheme of the hand phasers, all black plus the white grips, remained unchanged. However, details and main elements of the phaser saw several changes during the season. By the way, if you ever wondered why the white-handled phaser props were discontinued in favor of the gray and black Type 2 phasers used in Seasons 2 and 3, the reason is simple. The white-handled phasers simply did not photograph well. The only details that were consistently visible were the white grips and the shiny metal beam emitter housings. Even big elements, like the heat fins, were nearly impossible to see on screen because they were the same color black as the rest of the Phaser 2 body. Okay, let's look at my replicas from the 2014 video. In this shot, you can see both of the earlier white-handled phasers I built. These are replicas of the rarest versions of the props designed for Season 1. Actually, the only major difference between these two replicas are their beam emitter assemblies. The replica on the right is based on the flashlight emitter version of the prop that was used only once during Season 1. The clear emitter cone looks a bit shorter than it should, only because it's sitting deep in the emitter housing's concave reflector dish. This design was dropped because, as Mr. Coyle reports, the people on this show thought it looked too much like a modern-day flashlight. Okay. Personally, I like this reflector dish design and would have liked to have seen it integrated into hero-grade emitter housings with rotating control collars. I think it looks a lot more dynamic than the flat fronts used on later beam emitter housings. The replica on the left is based on a very rare design which featured a straight tube for the emitter tip instead of the tapered cone shape we all got used to on the TV show. While the Rack Props article does not make any specific references to this straight emitter tip, it does have a photo of one. I don't think this style was ever actually used on the screen. However, I used it for this replica because it makes the phaser look very unique. It's sort of a concept version of the phaser, if you will. The Rack Props article points out that the beam emitter elements of the Season 1 phasers weren't the only things that changed. The original side dial on the P2 body began in a much simpler form than we saw on the Season 2 and 3 phasers. The originals were flat discs with a straight bar attached across the center as a grip for turning the dial. Later versions more closely resembled the ones on the later season's phasers. However, if I read the Rack Props article correctly, none of the Season 1 side dials were functional. They couldn't move because they were simply glued on to the P2 body. The Phaser 2 power control knob was another part that changed a few times during Season 1. The earliest P2s had what I call a simple mushroom cap control knob. This was a featureless metal knob with no markings. The one on my replica can be turned, but it's really pointless because there are no reference points on the knob to show if it's been moved or not. As Season 1 progressed, the P2 control knob was revised and took on a shape much closer to that used in Seasons 2 and 3. During Season 1, the Type 1 phasers lacked most of the detail on the props used in Season 2 and 3. The entire Phaser 1 body was black. There were no shiny metal side rails or deflector strips along the sides to add definition and color to the unit. There was no power readout dome either. Instead, there were just two simple paper stickers that were supposed to show the phaser's power setting. Initially, hero-grade Phaser 1s had working mechanisms that would raise the sight and the aspirator grid when the thumb wheel was rotated forward. Rotating the thumb wheel would also extend a clear rod beam emitter from the front of the phaser. Rotating the thumb wheel all the way forward would activate a grain of wheat light bulb inside the extended tip. P2s also had the white bulb to light their emitter tips. These lights were used as cues for the post-production staff so they'd know when to start and stop the animated phaser beam effect that was added after the live-action filming. These Phaser 1 props, however, proved to be mechanically unreliable and often malfunctioned during filming. This resulted in simpler, more cost-effective Phaser 1 props being developed for Season 2 and 3. During Season 2 and 3, the Phaser 1's electron aspirator grid was a shiny metal plate with a diamond pattern etched into it. During Season 1, the electron aspirator wasn't a grid at all. It was a flat, smooth brass plate with no details whatsoever. On mid-grade Phaser 1s, these plates were usually static, non-moving parts. Well, that pretty much covers the major differences between the TOS Season 1 white-handled phasers and the more colorful Season 2 and 3 phasers. Before I show you the last version of the white-handled phaser that I built, I'll give you a quick demonstration of these first two replicas. Okay, here's a quick look at the Phaser 1 in operation. As you can see, I've got my thumb on the thumb wheel, and to fire it, I rotate forward. Here's the flashlight emitter version of the white-handled phaser. Note the deep concave recess at the front and how the emitter tip seems to be a bit shorter than normal because it's sitting back inside the recess. This is what that phaser looks like when it's fired. This replica's Phaser 1 is also equipped with light and sound and produces a bright blue beam just like the Phaser 2. Here's a look at the flat-fronted emitter version of this replica. The straight acrylic emitter tube has a far larger opening than the conical tip on the flashlight emitter version. As a result, the phaser beam produced is a little bit wider and can travel a little bit further than the one on the flashlight version. Okay, here's a quick look at the last white-handled phaser replica I built after the 2014 video was posted. As you can see, this replica has the same black on white color scheme as the other two phasers. However, it has a later style Phaser 2 control knob, a movable side dial, and a modified Phaser 1 with a raised sight and extended emitter tip. The emitter tip on this replica is fixed in place and does not extend or retract like on the original props. However, I did equip it with a simple white LED so it would look like the cue lights used on the TV show's props. The Phaser 2 has standard phaser sound effects, but instead of LED lighting in this replica, I fitted it with a bright red laser. Here's a quick look at how this replica works. Well, that's my revised white handle phasers video. I hope you liked it. Check out my website, sci-fi-dragon.net, for still photos and a short article about these prop replicas and other science fiction modeling subjects. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.